Welcome to this explainer. If you're tuning in today, chances are pretty high that you or maybe someone you love is carrying around a really heavy, often silent anxiety. And that's the fear of living with a weak heart. It is a completely terrifying feeling, isn't it? Just wondering if your body's most vital engine is slowly giving out. Naturally, you want to make it stronger, more resilient, and healthier. But man, the sheer thought of trying to reverse heart damage, that can feel just utterly overwhelming. Doesn't it feel like it would take years of grueling, exhausting effort to make any real difference? You're probably thinking, I just don't have the stamina for a multi-year boot camp. Honestly, it's the number one fear holding people back from cardiac rehabilitation. Okay, let's dive into this because the empowering, scientifically backed truth we're exploring today is that it absolutely does not take years. No way. You can fundamentally strengthen your heart, literally changing the trajectory of your health, in just 3 months. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the science of cardiac training. To really wrap our heads around how this rapid transformation is even possible, we've got to remember one very simple fact. Your heart is a muscle. That's it. And just like your biceps or your quads, it responds directly to training. When researchers actually looked at cardiac MRI scans, which, by the way, is the absolute gold standard for measuring the heart, they discovered something incredible. After just 16 weeks of targeted exercise, the heart muscle visibly increased in mass. It actually grew thicker. It grew stronger. It proves that proper exercise literally builds fresh muscle onto your heart. Now, as that heart gets stronger, the dangerous strain placed on it naturally goes down. And in the medical world, we measure that strain using a really crucial biomarker. It's called BNP. You can think of BNP basically like a distress signal. When your heart is struggling, working way too hard just to pump blood, it floods your bloodstream with high levels of BNP. So lowering the specific marker is the ultimate number one goal for cardiac health. A lower BNP means your heart is finally breathing a sigh of relief because it's no longer struggling under all that excess load. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of a 3-month aerobic routine. Anyone want to guess the impact? Well, a comprehensive review of multiple studies shows that proper aerobic exercise causes a massive 34% drop in BNP levels. Yep, a 34% reduction in the actual distress signal your heart is sending out. That is a staggering amount of dangerous strain completely wiped out from your cardiovascular system. It's definitive proof that your heart is suddenly operating with this whole new level of efficiency. So what does this drop in strain actually mean for you? Let's look at how this translates to real-world survival using standard Japanese clinical data. For acute coronary syndrome, which is the umbrella term for sudden, severe events like heart attacks, a 3-month rehab drops mortality by a shocking 48%, almost half. Plus, it halts the progression to heart failure by 33%. Now, what if you already have existing heart failure? Mortality still drops 33%, and hospital readmissions fall by 18%. And for folks recovering from heart surgery, a 51% drop in mortality. This standard 3-month timeline isn't just a nice-to-have. It is literally saving lives across the board. Which perfectly transitions us into Section 2, real results outside hospitals. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might assume those incredible clinical numbers only apply to patients locked inside some high-tech hospital rehab center, right? Hooked up to a dozen machines with doctors hovering over them all day. But actually, scratch that. It's a total myth. Just look at the actual patients taking part in these cardiologist-run outpatient classes. We're not talking about elite athletes here. The average age of this group is 77 years old. These are folks recovering from heart attacks, bouncing back from invasive valve surgeries, and people who have been dealing with severe heart disease for years. Just everyday people achieving absolutely incredible things without needing any specialized hospital equipment whatsoever. We can objectively prove this improvement using what's called the 6-minute walk test. It's a very direct indicator of your heart's strength and stamina. Now, what's really interesting about this data is the jump we see. Before starting the 3-month program, the average distance these patients could walk was 472 meters. But after just 3 months of out-of-hospital guidance, that number jumped to 513 meters. That is an improvement of over 40 meters, which equates to roughly a 10% increase in pure, unadulterated stamina. Let's humanize that data for a second, because a 10% increase sounds a little bit dry and clinical, doesn't it? Based on scientific models of aging and stamina, adding that kind of distance to your 6-minute walk literally rewinds your body's physical stamina age by 7 full years. Think about that. In just 3 months, these 77-year-old patients with severe cardiac histories got their bodies to function as if they were in their early 70s. 7 years of vitality just handed right back to them in 90 days. So how exactly did they pull this off? You're probably picturing a grueling, sweat-drenched daily boot camp. But the routine is surprisingly simple. First off, they only meet with a doctor in person once every 2 weeks. That's it. Second, that session is just 50 minutes of guided aerobic and strength training. But here is where the real magic happens, in step 3. They take the specific feeling, the exact exercise intensity they learned in that session, and they simply apply it to their own daily brisk walking at home. It's so approachable, anyone can do it.
And that brings us to section 3, the moderate exercise secret. The reason this minimalist approach works so profoundly all comes down to hitting the exact right Goldilocks zone of intensity. See, so many well-meaning people rely on low-intensity routines. A casual evening stroll, or maybe some light morning stretching, like the famous Japanese radio taiso. And hey, getting off the couch is wonderful, but this level of intensity is simply too low to trigger the muscle growth your heart actually needs. To physically change the heart, you absolutely must transition to effective, moderate intensity exercise. That is the Goldilocks zone where real physiological adaptation happens. Not too soft, not too hard.
Which leads us to the flip side. You might be tempted to go out and sprint or push yourself to total exhaustion, thinking it'll speed up the process. So the crucial point is that more is definitely not always better. Pushing too hard is incredibly dangerous. The second you cross out of that moderate zone and into high intensity, your cardiovascular benefits severely plateau. And worse, your risk of physical injury absolutely skyrockets, and you start putting dangerous counterproductive strain right back onto a weakened heart. Finding that perfectly balanced middle ground is absolutely essential for both your safety and your heart's growth. Let's wrap things up with section 4, next steps for your heart. Now, I'll be honest, calculating that perfect moderate intensity is actually pretty tricky to do all by yourself. In fact, even a lot of general practice doctors struggle to set it properly for their patients. That is exactly why the cardiologist behind this specific protocol created the TAM community. TAM stands for the Japanese words for fun, bright, and positive. It's this fantastic YouTube members community designed specifically to give you access to exclusive medical exercise courses. They teach you exactly how to find your personal moderate intensity. But honestly, even more importantly, it provides a safe, encouraging space to connect with other heart patients. Because let's face it, it's so important to realize you aren't going through this alone. To help you even further today, there are some amazing free resources available to you. If you check the description box below and connect via the Line app, you can grab 2 incredibly valuable PDFs. First, you get the doctor's easy-to-read textbook that breaks down heart disease without all that confusing medical jargon. And second, there's an exclusive, highly informative booklet from the National Cerebral and Cardiovascular Center. I highly, highly recommend grabbing these resources to really empower your learning. So let's recap. We've seen the undeniable MRI data, we've seen the drastic drops in mortality, and we've seen 77-year-olds reclaim 7 full years of vital stamina. We now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that strengthening a weak heart isn't some years-long impossible mountain to climb. It takes just 3 months of the right, moderate effort. Your heart is fully capable, and it is ready to get 7 years younger starting right now. The only question left is, are you ready to take that first moderate step today?